Racist waiter pours water on black family, unaware the father owns the restaurant. Cold water splashed across Jasmine's face first. She gasped. The ice hit her like a slap, soaking her sundress and catching in her lashes. Her 8-year-old brother let out a sharp scream beside her, more from shock than pain. Their mother jerked backward, mouth open in disbelief, as a cascade of water ran down the side of her face and pooled into her lap. The entire restaurant seemed to freeze. Forks paused midair. Conversations died mid-word. Standing above them, one hand still clenched around the empty pitcher, the waiter blinked twice and said flatly, "Y'all were taking too long. Thought you could use some help cooling off." The silence cracked. A woman at the next table muttered, "Jesus Christ," under her breath. A man in a polo shirt reached for his phone, already recording. Jasmine's father rose slowly from his chair. Water dripped from the collar of his neatly pressed shirt. His eyes locked on the waiter with a calm that was louder than any shout. "I'm sorry," the waiter stammered, trying to retreat. "You should be," the father said, stepping forward. "Do you even know who I am?" The waiter faltered. Then, just before the silence could split open again, the manager rushed over, eyes wide. "Mr. Taylor, wait, what's going on?" And that's when the waiter realized the name on the ownership plaque by the front door. Realized too late. But what happened next wasn't what anyone expected. What did the owner do next, and why did it make headlines for the rest of the year? Keep reading. Earlier that morning, Marcus Taylor had woken up before sunrise, like always. He didn't need the alarm. His body had long since memorized the rhythm of his mornings. Up at 5, run 2 miles around the block, cold shower, black coffee. No phone, no music, no interruptions. Just the breath, the cold, the silence. He stood now at the kitchen counter of his family's 3-bedroom home in Evanston, Illinois, barefoot on the cool tile, staring down at his cup. His reflection rippled in the dark coffee. He heard footsteps and looked up to see his daughter, Jasmine, wrapped in her favorite purple hoodie, hair wrapped in a satin scarf, eyes still half closed. "Hey baby," he said. "Morning, Daddy," she mumbled. She slid into the seat across from him and tucked her feet under herself like a cat. He poured her a glass of orange juice and slid it across the counter. She took it without a word. They didn't need many words in the morning. Marcus liked that about her. This was his quiet time. Before meetings. Before emails. Before the restaurant. Before the world remembered he was a black man who owned something people didn't expect him to. He glanced at the wall, where a calendar hung with circled dates. One of them was today, surprise visit, 11 a.m. His own handwriting. He'd written it a month ago. "You still up for brunch at the restaurant?" he asked. Jasmine looked up, eyes a little brighter now. "With Mom too?" "Yep. Whole crew." She smiled. "Can I wear the dress Grandma gave me?" "Of course. You'll look like a queen." He knew his daughter loved the place. Taylor's Southern Table. It had been open 3 years now, a hit from the start. Fried green tomatoes, shrimp and grits, hot honey cornbread. A place that felt like home, even if you were hundreds of miles from it. Marcus had built it with his own hands, alongside his best friend and business partner, Keith. From the floors to the menu to the staff, every detail had Marcus's touch. Every inch was personal. But today, he wasn't going to the restaurant as the boss. Today, he wanted to be a customer. A regular customer. He didn't tell his staff he was coming. That was the point. He needed to see how they behaved when no one was watching. And he needed to know how people like him were treated when they weren't behind the counter, but at the table. That's why he asked Jasmine to wear the dress. And that's why, when they walked in at 11:06 a.m. and were asked to wait, even though there were open tables, he said nothing. Not yet. The host barely looked up at them. A tall white boy with a loose tie and a name tag that read Dylan. He gave them a once-over and said, "Gonna be a little wait." "But there are open tables," Jasmine whispered, tugging on Marcus's hand. "I know, baby." He watched Dylan seat a white couple who'd come in after them. Then another one. Marcus said nothing. Not yet. When they were finally seated, 20 minutes later, the waiter arrived with a frown and no greeting. He didn't say his name. Just, "You know what you want." No menus. No water. No hello. His wife, Renee, looked at Marcus sideways. He gave her a small shake of the head. "Let it play out," his eyes said. They placed their orders. Simple stuff. Chicken and waffles for Jasmine. Catfish for Marcus. Renee asked for a kale salad and sweet tea. The waiter sighed. "We're out of kale." Okay, I'll just have. Want something else or not? There it was. The snap. Jasmine stiffened. Renee's lips tightened. Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying the waiter. He recognized him vaguely. A new hire, maybe 2 weeks in. He hadn't done the interview. Keith had. Marcus made a note to talk to him later. Bring us water when you come back, he said. The waiter didn't reply, just turned and left. They sat in silence for a beat. Then Marcus smiled softly at his daughter. Still want to be a chef someday? He asked. She nodded. I want to make the kind of food that makes people remember stuff. Like what? Like hugs. Or grandma's house. Or when it's cold outside but you're eating soup and you feel warm even before you swallow. He reached over and gently squeezed her hand. Good, he said. Hold on to that. When the food finally came, it was lukewarm and missing half the order. The catfish was overcooked. Jasmine's waffles were hard. No syrup. Still no water. Marcus stayed calm. But Renee's eyes were sharp. Baby, she whispered, why are we letting him? Because we need to see it. Really see it. The waiter passed them several more times, never checking in. Never asking how the food was. Marcus saw him laugh with a table of white diners across the room. Fill their glasses without asking. Bring out extra biscuits. And then, 20 minutes later, after they'd finished eating dry waffles and cold catfish, Marcus raised his hand. Excuse me, he said calmly. The waiter turned, rolled his eyes, and came over. Yes. We never got our water. A pause. And then, the waiter picked up a full pitcher from the nearby tray, walked over, and poured the entire thing over Jasmine's head. That's where it started. But it's not where it ended. Not even close. Because what Marcus Taylor did next didn't just change that restaurant. It changed the entire city. The water had barely stopped dripping from Jasmine's curls when Marcus stepped forward, slow and deliberate. His chair scraped back softly against the hardwood floor, and in the stillness, it sounded like thunder. The waiter's smirk faltered. Marcus was silent. Too silent. Jasmine blinked hard, not crying. Not yet, though her lower lip trembled. Renee reached across the table, pulling her daughter close, using a handful of napkins to dab at her soaked dress. She didn't speak either. Her eyes, though, were burning. The manager had just arrived, red-faced and confused, standing a few feet away. Mr. Taylor, she said again, this time with a nervous edge. I didn't know you were coming in today. Clearly, he said without looking at her. His eyes stayed locked on the waiter. Is this how you treat all your customers? I didn't know who you were, the waiter stammered. I thought. You thought what? The room was still watching. Phones out. Some recording. Others pretending not to. Marcus finally turned to the manager. What's his name? Kyle, she answered, flustered. He's new. Just started 2 weeks ago. Take Kyle to the back, Marcus said, voice low and even. Now. Sir, I don't know if. Now. She didn't hesitate a second longer. Let's go. She barked at Kyle, who looked like he'd just realized this wasn't some viral prank, but real life. His face turned a shade paler as he followed her, pitcher still dangling in his hand like a weapon he didn't mean to use. As they disappeared into the back, Marcus turned to the dining room. He scanned the eyes staring at him, some wide, some guilty, some curious. And then, calm as anything, he said, Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy your meals. You're in good hands. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Then he looked back at his family. Jasmine was crying now. Silent tears, trying to be tough, but they slipped down anyway. Renee stood, holding her close. Marcus, she said, please don't lose your job over this. He met her eyes. It's my name on the lease. You know what I mean. He reached for his napkin, wiped water off Jasmine's cheek. I know exactly what you mean. Then he walked to the kitchen. 3 hours earlier. The dining room hadn't yet filled when Kyle clocked in. He hated the early brunch shift. Too many kids. Too many half-asleep couples. People were always picky about breakfast food. He grabbed his apron and headed for the staff fridge to chug a Red Bull. Yo, Kyle, someone called. It was Brad, another server. Friendly, too friendly. Kyle gave him a half wave and kept walking. You get table 24? Brad asked. Looks like they're waiting. Yeah, I saw. Took forever to order. Did you seat them? Nah. Host stuck them there. Brad raised an eyebrow. All right, just a heads up. Heard the boss might come in today. Which one? Taylor. Kyle blinked. The black guy. Brad paused. The guy who owns the place. Right. Kyle muttered, already turning away. He hated how jumpy everyone got around Taylor. Every time he came in, the staff stiffened like they were about to be graded. Kyle thought it was stupid. No one cared this much when the co-owner Keith came by. But when Taylor showed up, the kitchen turned into military camp. He didn't understand why a guy with that kind of money wanted to play restaurant owner anyway. Wasn't it enough just to invest? Why be here all the time? Kyle got to table 24 around 11:30. They looked annoyed. The little girl had a face like thunder. The mom just stared at him. The dad, though, he looked calm. Too calm. Kyle didn't like the way he looked at him. Didn't like how long it took them to order. Didn't like the way the mom said sweet tea, like she knew more about the menu than he did. Didn't like how the girl rolled her eyes when he forgot the water. It built up. One mistake after another. He tried to avoid them. But when the dad raised his hand, again, Kyle just snapped. He didn't think. He didn't pause. He grabbed the pitcher, walked over, and dumped it. He hadn't expected the silence, or the way the dad just stood there. Not yelling, not raging, just staring. It was worse than yelling. Now he was in the back office, sitting in a metal chair, hands on his knees, shaking like it was cold. The manager stood in front of him, pacing. "You assaulted a child," she said flatly. "I didn't touch her," Kyle said. She blinked at him. "You poured a pitcher of water on an 8-year-old. In front of a packed restaurant. And you didn't know that was the owner's kid." "I didn't know who they were." She looked at him like he was the dumbest man alive. "He owns the building, Kyle. And the name on your paycheck. Can I just apologize? You think this is about apologies now?" She opened the door. "Wait here," she said. "He's coming." Kyle stood up. "What?" But the door shut. And Marcus Taylor was walking down the hallway. Back in the dining room. Jasmine had changed into her dad's hoodie. It hung off her shoulders like a blanket. Renee had ordered a ride home, but Jasmine clung to her dad's chair. "I want to stay," she said. "You sure?" Renee asked. "She needs to see this," Marcus said softly, kneeling beside her. "You're not going to yell at him, are you?" Jasmine whispered. "No, baby." He touched her cheek. "I'm going to teach him something." The metal chair groaned under Kyle as he shifted again. The air in the tiny office was thick. No windows. Just a buzzing fluorescent light, a desk covered in shift schedules, and a clock that ticked way too loud. Then the door opened. Marcus walked in. He didn't slam the door. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even look angry. He looked still, which somehow made it worse. Kyle stood halfway up. "Sir, Mr. Taylor, I didn't mean." Marcus held up a hand. "Sit." Kyle sat. Marcus took the seat across from him. He didn't rush. He folded his hands in front of him and just looked at the man. Kyle couldn't meet his eyes. "You ever have kids?" Marcus asked quietly. Kyle blinked. "No, sir." "Ever been a kid?" Kyle opened his mouth, then closed it. Marcus nodded once. "Thought so." He leaned forward. "Let me ask you a question. Not as your boss. As a father." His voice never lifted. "What do you think it feels like to see your 8-year-old daughter get humiliated in front of a room full of strangers?" Kyle swallowed. It was just water. I didn't mean it like that. I just lost my temper and." "You think it's about water?" Kyle opened his mouth again, but Marcus didn't give him the space. "It's about how you saw us. The second we walked in, you decided who we were, what we deserved. You didn't need to hear our names, or see our faces more than once. You made a call." "No," Kyle said, shaking his head. "I didn't mean. I treat everyone the same." "You don't." The words were final, like a gavel drop. Kyle's voice cracked. "I didn't know she was your kid." Marcus tilted his head. "If she wasn't." Kyle froze. Marcus let the silence stretch. "If she wasn't my daughter, would that have made it okay? If we were just some family you'd never see again?" Kyle stared down at the scuffed floor. "Exactly," Marcus said. Then he stood, and for a moment, Kyle thought he was about to be fired. But Marcus didn't say it. Instead, he walked over to the door, opened it, and gestured. A staff member entered, holding something in her hands. A folded apron, a blank notepad, and a clean water pitcher. Kyle stared, confused. Marcus walked back to the desk. "You want to fix this?" he said. Kyle blinked. I do. I swear. Whatever you need." Marcus nodded to the staff member, who dropped the items on the desk and left. "You're going to start over," Marcus said. "You're going to do today again. But this time, you're going to do it right." "What?" "You're going to serve us. From the top. Like it never happened." Kyle looked like he'd been punched in the chest. Marcus didn't flinch. "You're going to walk out there, seat us, bring us menus, and take our orders. You're going to treat us like people. Not because someone told you to. Not because I'm your boss. Because it's the bare goddamn minimum. Kyle didn't move. And when we're done, you'll clear the plates. Then you'll go home. And you'll think about what kind of man you want to be when you walk back in this building tomorrow. Kyle's face was pale. His voice was hoarse. What if I mess up again? Marcus stared at him. Then you don't come back. Back in the dining room, Jasmine watched the kitchen doors with wary eyes. Renee held her hand under the table. A few diners had left. A few others had stayed, unsure whether to eat or watch. Keith had shown up in a rush, pulling Marcus aside earlier, whispering frantically. But Marcus had waved him off. Just watch, he said. Then the doors swung open again. Kyle walked out. Clean apron. Blank pad. Hands shaking slightly. But he walked straight to the host's stand. He picked up 3 menus. Then, slowly, he approached the family's table. He stopped in front of them. Looked at Jasmine first. I'd like to welcome you to Taylor's Southern Table, he said, voice quiet but steady. May I seat you? No one moved. Jasmine looked up at her dad. He gave her a small nod. She stood. Renee stood. Marcus stood. And together, they followed the same waiter who had humiliated them. He led them to a table, closer to the window this time. Sunlight fell across the white cloth. He pulled out Jasmine's chair first. She sat slowly. He handed each of them a menu. Then he reached for the pitcher of water on his tray, and, this time, he poured 3 even glasses, gently, carefully. He placed the last glass in front of Jasmine. I'm sorry, he said to her. She looked at the water, then at her dad, then back at Kyle. I don't like lemon, she said. He blinked. I'll get one without. No. I mean, thank you for not putting lemon. Kyle exhaled, shoulders slumping slightly. You're welcome. Then he turned to Marcus and Renee. Can I take your orders? And this time, he listened. In the kitchen, Keith watched from the pass-through, arms crossed. He'd known Marcus since college. They'd built this place from nothing. He thought he'd seen everything. But he hadn't seen this. You gonna keep him? Keith asked later, while Marcus rinsed his hands in the prep sink. I don't know yet, Marcus said. Wasn't what I expected. It's not about him, Marcus said. It's about her. Keith nodded slowly. Jasmine. She needs to see what dignity looks like, Marcus said. Even when someone tries to take it from you. You think he'll get it? Marcus dried his hands. That's not my job. He looked through the window, out at his daughter, eating her second plate of chicken and waffles, smiling again. My job, he said, is making sure she knows what power looks like. Quiet power. Then he walked back out onto the floor. Not as the owner. Not as the boss. Just as a father. Kyle stood behind the coffee station, pretending to refill sugar packets. He could still feel the stares, even though no one was looking anymore. His hands shook slightly. He'd made it through the lunch shift, barely. The Taylors had finished their meal, tipped generously, and left quietly, without another word from Marcus. It was almost worse than being yelled at. He'd expected to be fired. Hoped, even. This part, the guilt, the waiting, was harder. Yo, someone said behind him. You really poured water on a kid? Kyle turned. It was Rosa, older than most of the staff, early 40s, sharp eyes, always wore her curls tight in a bun. Dishwasher and prep lead. Been there since the restaurant opened. He swallowed. I don't know what I was thinking. You weren't, she said flatly. I said I was sorry. You say that like it's enough. Kyle dropped the sugar packet. Why are you talking to me then? Because, Rosa said, stepping closer. You're not the only one who's been getting away with this kind of thing. Kyle blinked. What? She looked around, lowered her voice. You're just the first one dumb enough to do it in front of a crowd. Then she leaned in. I got something to show you. End of shift. Meet me by the back freezer. And she walked off like nothing happened. Earlier that morning, the prep station was cold, but Rosa didn't mind. She liked being back here. Away from the drama. Away from the floor. She knew the beat of the kitchen like a drummer knew his kit. What time the bread should be rising. When the collards should come off the boil. How to read the walk-in fridge by smell alone. She'd been here since day one. She'd seen it all. And lately, she'd been seeing too much. The white servers seated faster. The black customers asked more often if they could wait outside. Certain names marked on checks with trouble or high maintenance. Tips forgotten from tables with thick accents or dark skin. Rosa kept notes. Not because she wanted to snitch. Because no one listened until they had a stack of receipts. And now, after what Kyle did, she knew it was time. The difference was, Kyle had been sloppy. But there were others. Worse ones. And if Marcus really meant what he said about Jasmine watching Power, Rosa figured it was time he saw what the staff was hiding. That night, Kyle stood by the freezer at 10:14 p.m. The last shift had just ended. The kitchen was dark except for the glow from the under-counter fridge. He was about to walk away when he heard footsteps. Rosa appeared with a small black notebook in her hand. She handed it to him wordlessly. He opened it. Names, dates, incidents. Not just his. Brad marked a table ghetto in the POS notes last week, Rosa said. Emily put a 0 tip for a party that actually tipped $20, said they were rude and wouldn't notice. Kyle flipped through. His stomach sank. She's got at least 8 of those. But why didn't anyone say anything? They hide it better. Smile more. Don't dump water on kids. She stared at him. You were loud. They're quiet. He looked up. Why give this to me? Because you owe that little girl something, Rosa said. And you can't pay it back with just a pitcher of water. Kyle swallowed hard. What do you want me to do? She pulled a manila folder from her apron pocket. Give this to Marcus. No names yet. Just incidents. He'll know what to do with it. Kyle took it slowly. You trust me to do this? I don't, Rosa said. But I trust him to decide what to do after. Then she left. Kyle stood alone in the cold, holding the evidence in shaking hands. The next morning, Marcus was back in his office, barely 20 minutes into the day, when Kyle knocked. He looked up, surprised. Kyle stepped inside, shut the door, and placed the folder on the desk. I need to show you something. Marcus opened it. Read the first few lines. Didn't speak for a while. Then, softly, where'd you get this? Keeps happening, Kyle said. People notice. Rosa's been watching it for a while. She gave it to me last night. Marcus closed the folder. Looked Kyle in the eye. And why bring it to me? Because I didn't see it, Kyle said, voice low. And now I can't unsee it. Marcus leaned back. Outside, the staff was clocking in. The kitchen buzzed to life. Another busy day. But something had shifted. He tapped the folder. Close the door on your way out. Kyle hesitated, then nodded. As the door clicked shut, Marcus opened the file again. Names or not, the pattern was clear. It had been under his nose the whole time. And now, he had a choice. Look away or dig deeper. He reached for his phone. Marcus watched the footage 3 times before he spoke. The security camera in the northwest dining corner wasn't the best quality, just enough to catch outlines, gestures, and timing. But what it showed was more than enough. April 3rd, 6:42 p.m. A black couple waited at the host stand for nearly 9 minutes, while 3 white pairs were seated ahead of them. The host, Dylan, glanced at them once, said nothing. One of the seated couples had walked in after the black couple. Marcus watched as the man in the couple looked at his watch, frowned, then walked out with his partner. They never even made it to a table. The next clip, dated April 12th, showed a different angle. Rosa had marked this incident in her notes. Emily, a server, taking a smiling family's check, then tapping a few buttons at the terminal. The bill, the note read, had been altered. Marcus didn't have a direct angle on the screen, but he recognized the setup. Emily looked around, then hit no tip, and walked off. He leaned back in his chair. For 3 years, Taylor's Southern Table had been his pride, his proof, his stake in a world that told him, more than once, that he was only allowed to rent space, not own it. This place was supposed to be different. But somewhere in the routine, something had crept in, and now it was rotting from the inside. That afternoon, Keith stepped into Marcus's office, coffee in hand. Heard you were in early. Marcus closed the laptop slowly. Sit. Keith raised an eyebrow. What's up? You tell me. Keith sat, warily. Something wrong. Marcus opened the manila folder and pushed it across the desk. Keith flipped it open. His brow furrowed. Then he looked up. What is this? Patterns, Marcus said. That you either missed or ignored. Keith looked back down. These are serious accusations. They're not accusations. They're records. Keith's jaw tightened. So what? Kyle brings this to you, and now he's the hero. This has nothing to do with Kyle, Marcus said evenly. He just handed me what Rosa already gathered. Keith was quiet for a second. You believe her? Marcus didn't answer. He stood, walked to the window, looked out at the sidewalk where customers were starting to trickle in. I believe what I see. And I've seen enough. Keith stood too. Okay, look, maybe things slipped. Maybe some people got lazy. But we can handle this internally. Quietly. Marcus turned. That's exactly the problem. Keith frowned. You saying this is on me? I'm saying someone let this culture grow. And we both know who ran the front of house the last 6 months. Keith's face hardened. I did the hiring. Sure. But I didn't teach them to act like that. No. You just didn't stop them. A bead of silence stretched between them. Be careful, Marcus, Keith said finally. You start cleaning house too hard, you could tank morale. Word gets out, suddenly we're the place with a racism scandal. That's not good for business. Marcus took a long breath. I'm not worried about business. Keith looked at him. You're worried about your daughter. Marcus nodded. And every other kid who comes in here and watches how we treat their parents. He turned back to his desk, picked up the folder, and opened to the April 12th entry. You remember that family that walked out on April 3rd? Reservation for 2 under Coleman? Keith hesitated. Yeah, I think so. Young couple, right? They left. Never came back. Left a Google review that said, we were invisible. First time, last time. Keith said nothing. Marcus closed the folder. I'm starting mandatory retraining. Every front of house employee. And we're rolling out customer incident reporting, anonymous. Keith exhaled. Jesus, man. Anyone who resists, leaves. Keith stepped back. That's going to piss people off. Good, Marcus said. Let them be mad. Better than letting them be comfortable. That evening, Rosa was folding napkins in the back when Marcus found her. He leaned on the prep table. You were right, he said. She looked up. That happen often? He gave her a tired half-smile. Not enough. She paused. So what happens now? Marcus set the folder down. Now we shake the tree. Rosa nodded once. Anything you need, I'm here. He looked at her a moment. Why didn't you bring this to me earlier? I wasn't sure you'd believe me. That hit him harder than he expected. He nodded slowly. I'm sorry about that. She didn't say anything. Just went back to folding napkins. Later that night, Marcus sat alone in the dining room. The last customers had left. The chairs were flipped. The floor swept. A quiet buzz from the dish machine echoed from the kitchen. He pulled out his phone and opened the restaurant's Instagram account. He started typing. To our community. Something happened recently that forced us to take a hard look at ourselves. As the owner of Taylor's Southern Table, I've always believed in building a place where everyone is welcome and respected. But belief isn't enough. Action matters. We've discovered patterns of unequal treatment in our staff behavior. That stops now. We're launching a complete review of our service policies, retraining our team, and opening up an anonymous reporting channel for guests. We owe you better. We owe ourselves better. And most of all, we owe our children a place they can walk into and feel seen. Marcus Taylor. He hit post. Then he locked his phone and closed his eyes. Outside, the sky was black. But something had shifted. Inside these walls, at least, the cleanup had begun. Marcus barely stepped out of his car the next morning before he saw them. 3 women with picket signs stood just beyond the front entrance of Taylor's Southern Table, holding handmade boards that read things like, No more cover UPS, support black staff, not just black owners, and the one that stopped him cold. Owner protects racist culture, why now? The sun was still low, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. A few people had already stopped to snap photos. One woman live-streamed from her phone, narrating in a low, urgent voice. This is the place. This is the restaurant where a little black girl got doused with water and the owner stayed silent for weeks. Now he wants credit for doing the bare minimum. We're not buying it. Marcus wanted to walk straight past them, through the front door, and get to work. But he couldn't. So he walked toward the sidewalk instead. Good morning, he said, his voice even. The woman with the phone held it closer. Care to make a statement, Mr. Taylor? I've made one. Publicly. Right, she said. After you were exposed. After people like Rosa started speaking out. He blinked. You know Rosa? She's the one who gave us your folder, the woman said. We're not here because of you, Mr. Taylor. We're here in spite of you. Behind her, the woman with the why now sign nodded. We've seen this play out before. Boss man makes a speech, policies change, and in 6 weeks, everything's back to the way it was. I'm not asking for a round of applause, Marcus said, keeping his voice low. I'm doing what should have been done a long time ago. She stared at him. Then you should have started with yourself. That stopped him. He looked at her. Really looked. You think I protected this? She didn't blink. I think you looked away. And I think some of your staff suffered for it. Quietly. For months. She lowered the phone slightly. You want to do the right thing now? Then don't make yourself the hero of this story. And then she turned away. Inside the restaurant, the morning crew was quieter than usual. Fewer jokes, less banter. Everyone had seen the post Marcus made. Most had seen the protest. In the kitchen, Keith stood over the fryer, watching biscuits rise. "We're down 3 tables already," he said. 2 canceled. 1 showed up, saw the protest, left. Marcus rubbed his eyes. "It'll get worse before it gets better." Keith tossed a biscuit onto a rack. "You sure you want to keep this public? This whole thing could sink us. I'd rather sink for telling the truth than float on silence." Keith looked at him. "Then we better get ready to swim." By lunch, it was chaos. A local blog reposted the protest video. Then a regional paper picked up the story. Popular Southern restaurant faces backlash after alleged pattern of discrimination. By 2 p.m., the phone rang nonstop. Some were reporters. Some were customers asking if the place was still safe. Others were angry, accusing Marcus of playing the victim. One caller asked if they still served whiny kids with a side of guilt. By 3:30, Marcus's inbox had over 400 unread emails. But something else was happening too. At 4:15, a mother and her teenage son came in. She asked for a table by the window. "You're not afraid of the protest?" the host asked. The woman smiled. "Afraid? No. I brought my son here because I want him to see what it looks like when a black man owns a mistake and still shows up." The boy added, "Also the cornbread." By 6 p.m., the line wrapped halfway down the block. Not everyone was there to eat. Some were there to watch. Some were there to hate. But a surprising number were there to support. And then the headline dropped. Keith read it first, standing in the walk-in cooler, trying to cool off between shifts. Restaurant owner Marcus Taylor accused of creating toxic work culture. Former employees speak out. He burst into the office. "You seen this?" Marcus looked up from his laptop. "What now?" Keith dropped his phone on the desk. Marcus read it in silence. A woman named Chantel, former server, claimed she left because Marcus ignored her complaints about table assignments and unfair scheduling. Claimed he had a favorites list. Claimed that when she brought up racial bias and tip distribution, he said, "Focus on the food, not the drama." Marcus leaned back slowly. "I never said that." Keith sat across from him. "Doesn't matter now. It's out there." Marcus rubbed his jaw. "I remember Chantel. She quit after 3 weeks. Told everyone she got a better job." Keith nodded. "Still, timing's too perfect. She wants her moment." Marcus looked down at the article. One quote stood out. "People like Marcus think just because they're black and in charge, they can't be part of the problem." That hit harder than he wanted to admit. He stood. "Call a staff meeting. Tomorrow. Everyone." Damage control? Marcus shook his head. Truth control. Later that night, the restaurant closed early. The protests had thinned, replaced by a handful of curious onlookers and a local news van. Marcus stepped outside alone. Rosa was standing near the curb, her jacket zipped up tight. "Rough day," she said. He nodded. "You talked to Chantel?" "Barely knew her." Marcus sighed. "I never said what she claimed." "I know I didn't." "Maybe you didn't," Rosa said. "But maybe someone else did. And she heard it with your name on it." He looked at her. "You believe her?" "I believe people remember things the way they felt them." She paused. "But you own this place. You don't get to argue about intent anymore. You're responsible for the impact." He closed his eyes for a second, then nodded. "I'm holding a meeting tomorrow." "You telling them everything?" "I'm asking them to." She smiled faintly. "That's how you start rebuilding. Not with rules. With voices." And then she walked off into the night. Marcus stood there a moment longer. He didn't know how this story ended anymore. But he knew the next chapter wasn't his alone to write. Every chair in the dining room faced the same direction. 2 long rows. No tables between. No food. Just metal chairs on hardwood, and the hum of the refrigeration units bleeding in from the kitchen. It was 9 in the morning. Doors locked. Phones off. Staff only. Marcus stood at the front. Keith at his side, arms crossed. Rosa sat near the front row, hands folded, face unreadable. Kyle was there too. Hat off, eyes on the floor. Dylan from the host stand. Emily, Brad, line cooks, bussers, dish crew. About 40 people in all. Marcus cleared his throat. No microphone needed. The room was small enough that you heard your own breath. "Thank you for coming in early," he said. "I asked you here for one reason. We are going to talk about what has been happening in this building. Not what we wish was happening. What is actually happening. I am not here to defend myself. I am here to listen. I will answer questions when you are done." He let that settle. "You can speak freely." Nothing you say in this room will cost you your job. Our lawyer knows we are meeting. This is not a trap. It is a reset. Someone let out a quick, nervous laugh. No one joined. Who wants to start? Rosa lifted her hand. Marcus nodded. She stood. I kept notes, she said. Most of you know that by now. I started because I was seeing things in service that did not line up with the values we say we have. Not once. Over and over. She turned, including the room with her eyes. Longer waits for certain tables. Checks changed. Tip shares cut from staff with accents. Customers described with words that never should have been typed into a point-of-sale system. I brought some of it to the floor leads. Nothing changed. So I wrote it down. Keith shifted. Rosa, you never brought this to me directly. Yes, I did, she said without turning. March. After brunch. You said the data looked noisy and we should focus on average check. I wrote that down too. Murmurs. Marcus glanced at Keith. Keith stared ahead. Rosa sat. Marcus said, thank you. Who else? Dylan, the host, stood halfway. He looked sick. I had a cheat sheet, he said. When I started. We all did. Color tags. Green for VIP or regulars who spend. Yellow for comp watch. Gray for hold. The idea was load balance, right? But we all knew what gray meant. Parties flagged gray could wait. I did that. A lot. People noticed. Who gave you the sheet? Marcus asked. Dylan swallowed. His eyes flicked toward Keith. I got it from Brad. Brad said he got it from April, who said it was part of Keith's service notes. I never saw you write it, Keith, but your name was on the top of the training doc. KT's service flow. The room turned to Keith. Keith stood straighter. Hold on. That doc was about table turns. We never told anyone to seat by race. Rosa spoke from her chair. You said seat spenders first. You said protect the check average. What do you think happens when we use clothes, accents, hair, kids, stroller type, to guess who spends? Emily raised her hand sharply. We get punished if our section runs low check average. We all know who gets seated in the side room. Families. Black families. Students. Coupon parties. My take-home went down if I got that section. So yeah, I swapped in the system. I moved tables. If Dylan put a high spend in my section, I took it. Marcus felt heat rise in his neck. You changed section assignments on the floor. Emily did not flinch. Yes, everyone does it. Ask Brad. Ask Kyle. Brad lifted both hands. I mean, we trade. That is just work. You do not want a tin top with kids on a slow tip night. Kyle spoke for the first time. You said that table looked coupon, he said quietly. The morning I dumped the water. You said it after. In the hall. Do not stress, man. They looked coupon. Check will be low. The room froze. Keith turned. I did not say that. You did, Kyle said. Louder now. I remember it because I was shaking and you clapped my shoulder and told me to calm down. You said wait to see if they ask for a manager or if they just leave. You said maybe it would blow over because they were not our core spend. Those were your words. That is not what I meant, Keith snapped. I meant brunch spend is lower regardless of who sits. Everyone knows that. Rosa stood again. Say their names. The Taylors. You knew it was them. I did not until Marcus walked in, Keith said. Marcus looked from one to the other. You touched my daughter on the shoulder when you came in, he said slowly. You told her, hey Jazz, how is the food? You knew. Keith's mouth opened. Closed. I thought I recognized her after, he said. Silence pressed in. From the back, a dishwasher named Luis cleared his throat. People like me do not talk much in meetings. I am talking now. When I first started, I asked why the back patio never opened for the late crowd from the community center. I was told we close early when the crowd shifts. That came from management. We turned away people at 9:15 while we kept white couples at 9:30 because they were still drinking wine. That was not a one-time thing. That was a schedule. Marcus did not sit. He could not. His legs felt locked. Who told you to close early on community nights? He asked. Luis pointed. Not at Keith. At the ceiling. Came through the tablet. Auto message at 8:30. Patio soft close if mixed shifts after 9. I do not know who wrote the rule. It was just there. Marcus turned to the office door. Open the POS logs, he said. Now. No one moved. He walked out, the staff trailing in a nervous cluster, and unlocked the office. The main POS terminal sat on the desk. Rosa slid into the chair before he could. She moved like she had done this before. Reports. Admin. System rules, she said. A list popped up. Service underscore flow underscore KT underscore 2025 Q1. She clicked. There it was. Color tags enabled. Gray default threshold set to low spend predictive. Inputs: historical check average by time slot, table turnover, coupon redemption, zip code match from loyalty program. A footnote: optional manual override. Host may bump low predictive to hold if demand high. Use discretion. Protect core spend. Initials: KT. Created January 9th. Last modified April 18th. Marcus stared at the screen. He whispered, "I did not approve this." Keith said nothing. Rosa scrolled. Another rule. Patio underscore close underscore cond underscore 2. If walk-in percent greater than 40 and loyalty scan less than 20, patio close at 2100 hours. Extend bar 2130 if bar revenue threshold. Initials MT. Marcus jerked. No, that is not mine. Rosa opened the audit trail. The system had imported staff credentials when they tapped the manager card. Marcus' key fob had been used twice that night. He had been out of town. Keith spoke. We swapped badges that week because your card was the only one authorized for schedule macros. I told you in text. Marcus's head spun. So my credentials triggered a rule that closed sections on nights when locals showed up without loyalty scans. That is not what it was meant to do, Keith said, voice rising. It was a traffic tool. We were bleeding on labor. We had to cut somewhere. Coupon groups camp tables. We needed turn. Rosa looked up. Coupon groups is how you said black and broke. That is not fair, Keith snapped. It is accurate, she said. Voices rose. Emily shouting over Brad. Dylan trying to say he just followed the doc. Kyle saying he was done being the face of something everyone did quietly. Luis repeating that he lost hours on community nights. Marcus held up both hands. Stop. The room quieted. I failed you, he said. No microphone. Just the truth. I built a place and then let the numbers run it. I did not read every line you pushed into that system, Keith. That is on me. Whatever your intent, the impact was real. We hurt people. He turned to the staff. Here is what happens next. And I am saying it out loud so there is record. He counted on his fingers. 1. All service flow rules disabled. Today, we seat first come, with reservation priority as listed. No predictive hold. No gray tags. 2. Tip share audit from day 1. External accountant. Back pay if we owe it. 3. Anonymous hotline through third party. If you see something and do not feel safe raising it here, you send it there. We read every report. 4. Mandatory bias and hospitality training for everyone who touches a guest. Management sits in the first row. 5. Any retaliation after this meeting is grounds for termination. He lowered his hand. Questions. A quiet voice from the back. It was May, a pastry cook who almost never spoke in large groups. What about ownership, she asked. If some of this happened because of how Keith runs the floor and some happened because your name approved rules you did not understand, who leads now? Do we still have the same bosses? The question hung. Keith stepped forward. You need me, he said to Marcus, not the room. Do not make a show of throwing me out. You think the bank will keep the line open if I walk? My personal guarantee is tied up in the expansion. Payroll hits Friday. If I go, the cash stops. Gasps. Someone cursed softly. Marcus stared at him. Are you threatening me? Keith shook his head. I am telling you reality. You want moral clean hands, fine. But you fire me and the doors close. And that girl of yours watches you lose everything you built to prove a point. The room erupted. Voices over voices. Rosa stood again, but could not be heard. Brad was talking into his phone, live streaming. Emily crying. Dylan pale. Marcus did not move. He watched Keith. He saw the fear behind the anger. The math behind the threat. He saw the line between friendship and leverage snap in real time. He opened his mouth. Before he could speak, the front door buzzer sounded. Loud in the chaos. Everyone turned. Through the glass, 2 people in navy windbreakers stood holding clipboards. City seal on the chest. Civil Rights Compliance Unit. They had received a complaint. They were here to inspect. Marcus closed his eyes for 1 second. Then he opened them. Meeting adjourned. Nobody leaves, he said. We are doing this in the light. The inspectors didn't ask to sit. They walked in like they'd done this 100 times before, which they probably had, and started by handing Marcus a single sheet of paper. It wasn't an accusation. It was a notice. Subject, Allegation review, discriminatory service practices. Complainant, confidential. Scope, on-site observation, staff interviews, operational review. Duration, immediate, 3 to 5 hours. Signed and sealed by the Chicago Office of Civil Rights Compliance and Enforcement. Marcus read it twice before looking up. We're a small unit, the lead inspector said. Her name tag read C. Harper, and her expression didn't change when she saw the stack of shocked staff behind him. But we've got authority to walk through your entire floor plan, interview staff, request policies, and issue findings. We're not here to shut you down, unless we need to. Her partner, a tall, quiet man named Thompson, stood by the hostess stand already taking notes. Harper looked at Marcus again. Do we have your cooperation? Marcus met her gaze. Yes. Keith exhaled sharply beside him. Marcus, can I speak to you? Privately, before. We're not leaving this room, Marcus said. Harper nodded. Good. Then we'll begin right here. 10:03 a.m. Interview, staff collective, live note-taking initiated. Harper flipped open a slim black laptop and placed a small recording mic in the center of the host's stand counter. It beeped once. I'm going to ask the group a few questions. I want honesty. Don't protect your managers. Don't protect each other. No retaliation. If I find out anyone who speaks up gets fired or loses hours, we open a second investigation. She looked around. Understood. Heads nodded. Let's start simple. Who here has witnessed service delays for certain customers based on appearance, accent, or race? A few hands hesitated. Then all at once, 6, then 9, then 12 hands went up. Harper didn't flinch. Documented? She asked. Rosa stepped forward. I have records, she said. Dates, names, and notes. I gave some of them to management already. Did you ever report this to a city agency? No. I thought we could fix it ourselves. Harper nodded once and made a note. Who made the call to close patio service early on high walk-in nights? She asked. Keith stepped forward. Those were schedule-based decisions. Approved by whom? My department, Keith said, glancing at Marcus. But I used Marcus's badge to implement the POS rules. It's standard here. Harper looked at Marcus. You authorized that? No, Marcus said. But I gave Keith access under my name. That's on me. Thompson, still standing by the door, finally spoke. Was any training offered to prevent bias in service delivery? No, Marcus said. Harper tapped her keyboard. Thank you. Then she turned to the room. Who can speak to tip distribution issues? Emily's voice was small. I can. Everyone turned. Harper gestured. Go ahead. Emily took a deep breath. Some of us changed how we pulled tips. We didn't always record exact numbers. Sometimes we shifted based on who we thought didn't work hard enough or didn't speak English well enough. That's what people said, anyway. It became normal. Who authorized that? No one. It was just what we did. Harper raised an eyebrow. So there was no system? There was, Rosa cut in. But no one enforced it. People worked around it. Sometimes management turned a blind eye. Sometimes they just didn't care. Harper looked at Keith. He didn't answer. 11:12 a.m. On-site inspection begins. Harper and Thompson began walking the building. Rosa guided them. Marcus followed. Keith lingered in the office, pacing. As they passed the service terminal, Harper pointed to the rules database. Pull it up. Marcus did. She reviewed the language. Gray tag logic. Table assignment history. Loyalty skin influence. She scrolled to the audit log. This system is smart, she said. Too smart to accidentally do what it did. Someone trained it. She looked at him. You or Keith? Marcus stared at the screen. I signed off on the software, but I didn't audit it properly. That's on me. She turned to Rosa. You trust him to fix this? Rosa didn't answer right away. I trust him to listen now, she said. That's something, Harper replied. 12:03 p.m. Harper calls for executive decision. In the center of the dining room, Harper stood in front of both owners. The law allows us to pause business operations if we believe civil rights are actively being violated, she said. But based on what I've seen, you're trying to repair. But, she added, this is still a red-level incident. You'll receive a formal citation, a follow-up audit, and a 6-month probation. Marcus nodded. Understood. But, Harper continued, turning to Keith, the individual who implemented these system rules under another person's credentials, while enforcing service patterns that correlate directly to racial disparity, will need to be suspended from all supervisory authority, effective immediately. Keith blinked. Excuse me. Harper looked at Marcus. You're the owner. It's your call. But if he continues managing staff while the case is active, we escalate. Marcus looked at Keith for a long time, then said quietly, You're out. What, Marcus? You're done managing. No schedule access. No hiring. No table plans. You want to stay on payroll? Fine. But you don't lead. Not now. Keith's face darkened. You can't do this without me. I'm already doing it. Keith looked like he might argue, then saw the rest of the staff watching. He didn't say anything more. He just turned and walked toward the back. 1:47 p.m. Harper and Thompson prepare to leave. Harper closed her laptop. We'll file a report by end of week. You'll receive official findings. Expect press. If you stay transparent, you'll weather it. Before she left, she turned to Marcus. One last question. Yeah. Why didn't you see this sooner? Marcus didn't speak for a long time. Finally, he said, because I wanted to believe my ownership was enough. That building something good meant the people inside it were good too. But that's not how it works. She nodded. Then she left. 3 p.m. Doors reopened. There was already a line waiting. Jasmine was near the front with Renee, both dressed for an early dinner. Marcus didn't know they'd be coming. When they reached the hostess stand, Dylan greeted them with menus and a full glass of water. No lemon, just the way she liked. You look good in charge, Jasmine said to her father when he came to the table. I'm just trying to be better, Marcus replied. You are, she said. And that was the first thing all day that made him smile. The report dropped at 6:43 a.m. Marcus knew it would. Harper had warned him the night before. We don't control the press, Mr. Taylor. Someone always leaks it early. He was sitting at the kitchen table in his usual spot, black coffee, sleepless eyes, inbox already buzzing, when Keith's name popped up on his phone. He let it ring. Twice. 3 times. Then silence. He didn't want to hear excuses. Not today. He opened the city report instead. Summary of findings. Discriminatory service practices, Taylor's Southern Table. Status. Confirmed violations. Use of algorithmic seating rules contributing to racial bias. Manual override systems exploited by floor managers. Tip pool inconsistencies resulting in wage disparity. Pattern of systemic inaction from management. Conclusion. Probationary status for 6 months. Required oversight. No further violations permitted. Future violations subject to fines or license suspension. Marcus read the last line 3 times. License suspension. They were hanging by a thread. Renee walked in, barefoot, robe wrapped tight, hair still wet from the shower. She paused when she saw the look on his face. It's out, he said. She sat beside him, read it over his shoulder. When she got to the bottom, she asked, Is this survivable? Marcus didn't answer at first. Then, if we stay quiet, probably not. Renee took a breath. Then you can't stay quiet. He turned to her. I already posted the letter. Spoke at the staff meeting. I've said my piece. You said it to your staff, she said gently. Now you need to say it to everyone else. Marcus looked at her. What are you saying? She picked up his phone and handed it to him. The screen was lit up with news alerts. One headline made his stomach flip. Local owner silent as bias scandal spreads. Taylor declines interview offers. What is he hiding? Renee said. You can't control the story unless you step into it. Marcus stared at the headline, then at the camera app on his phone. 9:12 a.m. News call. The call came from WGN's morning desk. Their senior anchor, Maya Clark, was leading a special segment on bias in hospitality. She wanted Marcus on camera. Live. Tonight. He almost said no. But then Jasmine walked in, holding a bowl of cereal, one sock on. She looked up. You okay, Dad? He nodded. I'm just thinking about telling the truth. Then do it, she said, and walked to the living room like she hadn't just dropped a hammer. 7:57 p.m. Studio lights. Marcus sat under the hot lights of the WGN studio, mic clipped, palms sweaty. Across from him, Maya Clark flipped through a legal pad. Her tone wasn't warm, but it wasn't hostile either. She was sharp, direct, and visibly tired of men ducking accountability. 2 minutes, a producer called. Marcus adjusted in his chair, took a breath. The camera light blinked red. We're live in 3, 2. On air. Maya. We're here tonight with Marcus Taylor, co-owner of Taylor's Southern Table in Evanston, which has recently come under scrutiny for confirmed discriminatory service practices uncovered by a city investigation. Mr. Taylor, thank you for being here. Marcus, thank you for having me. Maya, let's get right to it. You posted a statement last week about making changes, about accountability. But critics say you stayed silent until you were forced to speak. What do you say to them? Marcus, they're right. Maya blinked. They're right. Marcus nodded. I should have spoken sooner. I should have looked deeper. I didn't. I wanted to believe that being a black owner meant the place was safe by default. But that's not how power works. If you're not intentional, you become part of the problem. Even when you look like me. A beat passed. Maya leaned in. Maya, why didn't you see it earlier? Marcus, because I trusted the systems more than the people. And the systems were built to prioritize profit. Efficiency. Table turn. I didn't stop to ask who was getting left out in that math. That's on me. Maya, what happens now? Marcus, we're not hiding. We're retraining. Rebuilding. We've opened a reporting line. We've started bias audits. Every employee is paid for the time they spend learning how to make this place feel like a place everyone wants to return to. Maya, some former staff say they still haven't heard from you, that you only care about the headlines. Marcus didn't flinch. I'll call every one of them. If they'll pick up. If they don't, I'll write them. If they don't want that either, I'll understand. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm working for trust. Maya, one last question. Do you think your restaurant will survive this? Marcus paused. Then, that depends. On what? On whether people believe a place can fall short and still be worth saving. The interview ended. 10 minutes later, Marcus was back in his car. The air felt thinner. He stared at his hands. They weren't shaking. That surprised him. His phone buzzed. Text from Rosa. You did what most bosses never do. You listened. Good start. Then another text from an unknown number. This is Chantel. I saw the interview. Maybe it wasn't all your fault. Let's talk. And then, finally, a message from Keith. You threw me under the bus. You think this ends with me? Watch your back. Marcus stared at it, then deleted it. It started with a folded note left under Marcus's office door. No name. No handwriting he recognized. Just one line. You're only seeing half the story. Meet me in the dry storage at 10:30. Come alone. It would have been easy to dismiss. Another anonymous jab. Another critic who didn't have the nerve to speak out loud. But Marcus had learned something over the last few weeks. When people break their silence, it means there's more at stake than you realize. So at 10:29 a.m., he slipped through the kitchen, nodded at the prep line, and unlocked the heavy gray door to dry storage. It smelled like flour, onions, and dust. No cameras. No windows. The kind of place people went to vent, cry, or scream into a burlap sack of rice. She was already there, crouched beside a shelf of canned tomatoes, tying her apron. Hey, she said without looking up. May. Marcus blinked. You left the note? She stood slowly. Yeah. Marcus closed the door behind him. What's going on? May pulled out her phone, tapped it once, then held it up. A voice played, tinny but clear. I don't care if she's got receipts. You handle it. Cut her shifts. Tell her we're full. Or make up something. We need the noise to die down, not spike again. Then silence. Marcus felt cold all over. Who was that? May stared at him. Brad. Talking to Emily. Yesterday. I recorded it by accident. Left my voice memo app running in my apron during a break. I think they were in the server alley. Thought no one could hear. Marcus swallowed. He's telling her to retaliate? May nodded. Against Rosa. Maybe even Kyle. Marcus took a slow breath. That's illegal. I know. You sure it's Brad? I'd bet my rent. He nodded, jaw tight. Send me the file. I'll handle it. I'm not done, May said. She pulled a small notebook from her apron and handed it to him. Rosa's not the only one who kept notes. Marcus opened it. It was meticulous. Server swaps. Comments logged under POS notes. Shifts cut after complaints. Hosts stand code words. Times. Names. His stomach turned. There's stuff here even Rosa didn't catch. May looked him dead in the eye. Marcus, it wasn't just Keith. It wasn't just Brad. You've got a whole layer of rot sitting beneath your policies. He nodded slowly. I believe you. I'm not just handing this over, she said. I want a seat at the table. When you rebuild, when you start deciding what this place is, I want in. Marcus blinked. I'm a pastry cook, she said. But I've been invisible too long. And I'm done waiting for you to remember I exist. A long pause. Then Marcus smiled. Not wide. Just enough to show it hit him. You're in, he said. Starting today. She exhaled, like she hadn't dared believe he'd say yes. Marcus turned the notebook over in his hands. Thank you for trusting me. She looked him in the eye. Don't make me regret it. Then she walked out. Later that afternoon, Marcus called Rosa and Kyle into his office. May stood by the door. He played the recording. Rosa's face didn't move. Kyle cursed under his breath. I knew it. I knew they were icing me out. They're done, Marcus said. Both of them. He called Brad into the office first. Played the audio. Watched him pale. You can't prove that's me. I don't have to, Marcus said. Your keys won't work by the time you walk out that door. You're off payroll as of now. What about my tip share? You'll get what you're owed. That's it. Brad opened his mouth to argue, but the look on Marcus's face closed it again. Then Emily. She didn't deny it. She cried. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, she said. I was scared of losing hours. Brad said Rosa was making it worse. He said if we didn't push back, we'd all be out. Marcus didn't raise his voice, but his eyes didn't blink. You chose comfort over conscience, he said. You're done here. She didn't speak again, just left. The next morning, Marcus stood in front of the staff. Again, but this time, there was no tension, just quiet. We removed 2 more staff members, he said, for retaliation, manipulation, and breaking the most important rule we have, respect. He paused. May will be joining the management council. Effective today. She brought forward evidence we couldn't ignore. She made this place better. May stood by the bar. A few people clapped. Rosa nodded, slow and proud. And starting next week, Marcus said, we're creating something new. A voice table. 1 rep from every role, server, line, host, dish, pastry, bar, will meet weekly. Unpaid. Voluntary. Their job is to tell me the things no one else will. He looked around the room. Silence did the damage. Talking will fix it. A few heads nodded. A few looked down. But no one walked out. Outside, the press was still circling. A new article ran in the Tribune. After scandal, Taylor's Southern Table begins to rebuild. But can one man undo what the system allowed? Marcus didn't read the whole thing. He was too busy calling Chantel back. Too busy planning the first voice table meeting. Too busy standing at the front door, greeting customers by name again. The first voice table met in the private dining room, just after close. The reserved sign was still on the door, flipped over so the blank side faced the hall. No candles. No music. Just 6 folding chairs, a dented pitcher of water, and a yellow legal pad in the center of the table with the words, Speak. Honestly, Marcus sat at the head of the table, not as a boss, but as one voice among 6. He'd asked Rosa to run the meeting, and she'd agreed on one condition. You don't speak first, and you don't interrupt. So he didn't. The reps were Rosa, prep/dish. May, pastry/backline. Kyle, frontline/servers. Luis, facilities/overnight. Dylan, host/reservations. And Shauna, a soft-spoken bartender with tattoos on her knuckles and a memory like a steel trap. Rosa opened with the ground rules, short, sharp, and non-negotiable. No names without context. No passive aggression. And no talking around it. We're here to build, not protect feelings. Then she leaned back. Go. Kyle started, surprisingly. I want to talk about power, he said. Because we've spent weeks fixing the obvious stuff. Rules, schedules, forms. But there's something deeper. Marcus leaned forward instinctively. Kyle raised a hand. You said you'd wait. Marcus sat back. Kyle looked around the table. We all show up to work differently. Some of us keep our heads down. Some of us hustle loud. But the people who make the biggest impact? They're the ones the bosses listen to. Dylan nodded. And before all this, that circle was tight. Louise spoke next, slow and deliberate. I had things to say for 2 years. No one asked. No one looked past the mop. May added, it's not just about color. It's about class. Voice. Who gets heard? The quiet ones fall through the cracks. Shauna, who hadn't spoken yet, sipped her water. Or we just get tired of talking, she said. Tired of watching people nod like they get it, then change nothing. The room was silent. Then Rosa turned to Marcus. Time to speak. He exhaled. You're right. You're going to have to be more specific, Rosa said. Marcus looked at each person at the table. I built something and ran it like a top-down machine. Even when I told myself I was open to feedback, I was really waiting for validation. No one spoke. I'm not proud of that. But I see it now. And I don't want to go back. May leaned forward. Then what's next? Marcus opened the legal pad. I thought I'd ask you all the same thing. He flipped to a blank page. Write down the first thing that still feels off about how this place runs. No names. No excuses. Just truth. One by one, they took the pen. When the page came back to Marcus, he read the first line and stopped cold. Maybe the restaurant doesn't need Marcus in charge anymore. He looked up. No one looked away. He turned to Rosa. Did you write this? She shook her head. Does it matter who did? Shauna asked, her voice calm. Marcus stared at the paper. Then he said the thing he never thought he would. No, it doesn't. He folded the page and placed it beside him. Let's talk about it. 2 hours later. The air in the room felt different. Not hostile. Not resolved. Just honest. Luis had suggested shared leadership, more decisions made by team vote. Shauna wanted the ability to veto future management hires. Dylan said the next operations lead should be someone chosen by floor staff. Not a Keith. Not a clone of a Keith. May pushed hardest of all. Ownership doesn't have to mean control, she said. You built the bones. But now it's time to let the body grow without you choking it. Marcus sat in silence for a long time, then said, So what are you asking me to do? Step back? Step out? No, Rosa said. Step aside. Let us lead beside you, Kyle added. Not below you. Marcus stared at the folded page again, then nodded. Okay. The next morning, they posted a new photo on the restaurant's social media. 6 staff members at the bar, aprons still dusty, holding coffee mugs and the yellow legal pad in the center. The caption read, Taylor's Southern Table is now led by a collective voice. Ownership stays. Power shifts. We're not perfect, but we're changing, with each other, not above each other. Come see for yourself. It went viral. Not in the scandal kind of way. In the hopeful kind. The comment section was full of skeptics, but it was also full of former customers saying, Finally, this is how you grow. Tried it last night. Staff feels different now. Y'all gave me hope today. And somewhere in that thread, among hundreds of replies, Chantel posted a single comment. I just made a reservation. Bringing my mother. Let's see what the new voice sounds like. Marcus saw it at midnight, from home. He stared at the screen for a long time. Then typed, I'll be in the back, where I should have been all along. And hit send. The reservation was under Chantel R. 6:30 p.m., party of 2. They didn't ask for special treatment. No note on the booking. No hint of what this dinner meant. But everyone on staff knew. By 6 p.m., the restaurant was humming. Nothing fancy, just regular noise. Silverware clinking. Tables being reset. The scent of blackened catfish and honey butter cornbread in the air. Marcus stood in the back, arms crossed, watching from just behind the prep pass. He wasn't in charge tonight. Not technically. The voice table had assigned May as floor lead for the week. Rosa ran the kitchen. Kyle was expediting. Shauna had bar. Dylan floated as needed. It was working. And Marcus? He was there to observe. And to listen. At 6:28, the front door opened. Chantel walked in with her mother, tall, poised, Sunday dress energy, even on a Thursday. Chantel wore black jeans and a denim jacket, hair pulled back, face unreadable. Her mother looked around slowly, eyes sharp. They were seated by Dylan near the window. No fuss. Just water, menus, a calm, let me know if you have any questions. The same as any other table. Exactly what Marcus had hoped for. Except he wasn't ready for how it would feel. 6:42 p.m. Kyle approached the table, notepad in hand. Welcome to Taylor's. My name is Kyle, and I'll be taking care of you this evening. Chantel's eyes flicked up. Recognition. Kyle didn't flinch. Can I start you off with anything to drink? Her mother answered first. Sweet tea. With lemon. Chantel just said, water's fine. Kyle nodded. Coming right up. He didn't fumble. He didn't rush. He didn't overcompensate. He treated them like people. When he walked past the prep window, he glanced at Marcus. No words. Just a nod. 7:04 p.m. The food went out, quick, hot, plated with pride. Chantel ordered the shrimp and grits. Her mother had fried chicken and mac. Marcus watched as they talked quietly between bites. Then, at 7:25, Chantel stood, walked past the host stand, right into the kitchen. The staff froze. Marcus stepped out from the prep wall. You good? He asked. She nodded once. Can we talk? He led her into the back hallway. Same one where Keith once stood, making excuses. They stopped near dry storage. Chantel leaned against the wall, arms folded. So, she said, this the new you? Marcus didn't smile. I'm not sure yet. She nodded. Good answer. A long pause. I read the report, she said. Watched the interview. Didn't expect you to name the things you did. I meant them. You also didn't apologize to me. I wanted to, Marcus said. But I thought it would sound like I was trying to make it about me again. Chantel looked away. You did ignore me. I know. You let people like Keith run the show. I did. And you watched good people burn out. I did, he said again. And I'm sorry. Chantel's face didn't soften. But her posture did. My mother was nervous, she said. She didn't want to come back. Said this place humiliated her daughter. And maybe it did. But she also said, if a place admits it broke, maybe it deserves a second look. Marcus said nothing. I don't know if I'll come back after tonight, Chantel added. But I needed to see if you'd still be hiding in the office. I'm not, he said. No, she said. You're not. She turned to leave. Then paused. One more thing. Yeah. You don't need to be the voice, she said. You just have to hold the mic steady when someone else speaks. And then she walked out. 7:48 p.m. Marcus returned to the kitchen. Rosa passed him with a full tray. You alive? Barely, he said. Good. Keeps you honest. She smiled. He chuckled. For the first time in what felt like months, it wasn't forced. 9:02 p.m. The final table of the night was Mark Taylor family, 3 guests. Jasmine, Renee, and Marcus. They were seated near the front, where the light hit just right. Jasmine ordered her usual, waffles and fried chicken, heavy on the syrup. Renee had greens and cornbread. Marcus didn't eat much, just sipped his coffee, watching his daughter laugh. Kyle approached their table with the check. He didn't hand it to Marcus. He handed it to Jasmine. She blinked. Me? You're the one who brought this place back to life, Kyle said. Seems fair. Jasmine grinned. Cool. She read the total, pretended to consider it, then scribbled in the tip line. Can I write a note too? She asked. Of course, Kyle said. She wrote something small, then folded the check and handed it back. As Kyle walked away, Marcus leaned over. What did you write? Jasmine shrugged. Just something I meant. He opened the slip. Below the tip, in tiny handwriting, she'd written, Thank you for seeing us this time. Marcus folded it carefully and tucked it into his shirt pocket. 10:12 p.m. The chairs were flipped. The lights dimmed. The kitchen quieted. Marcus stood alone in the dining room, breathing it in. Not the past. Not the pain. Just the promise of what came next. He wasn't the voice anymore. But he was still listening. And now, finally, so was everyone else.